The drama surrounding Khamzat Chimaev's clash with Dricus Du Plessis will be remembered not just as another title fight in the UFC's ever-turbulent middleweight division, but as the night a rising storm finally swallowed the weight class whole. When the dust settled, when the sweat, blood, and gasps of the crowd faded into memory, one truth was undeniable. Khamzat Chimaev had not just won. He had conquered. He had dethroned a champion in a way that seemed almost methodical, dismantling the South African powerhouse round after round, and in doing so, declared himself the new king of the middleweights. This wasn't a night defined by a sudden knockout or a flash submission. It wasn't a coin flip decided by one wild swing of fortune. Instead, it was a calculated, suffocating, almost merciless demonstration of dominance. Chimaev walked into the cage carrying the weight of hype, whispers of doubt, and even rumors of possible retirement. Yet by the time his hand was raised, those doubts had been swept aside, and the whispers had been replaced by something else entirely. Speculation not about the end of his career, but about how far it could truly go. Even before the cage door closed, the stakes felt larger than the belt itself. Dricus Du Plessis had been billed as a warrior who could weather storms, a man who could endure punishment and somehow find a way to prevail when the odds tilted against him. But against Chimaev, endurance wasn't enough. The fight quickly turned into a relentless wrestling clinic, the kind Joe Rogan and Michael Bisping had warned about, the kind Darren Till had already seen firsthand in countless training sessions. Round after round, Chimaev chained together takedowns with ruthless efficiency, suffocating Du Plessis' offense before it could even begin. What stood out wasn't simply that Chimaev was winning, it was how he was winning. Every moment carried the same rhythm, a shot, a sprawl denied, a scramble smothered, and then top control that drained time, energy, and hope from the champion. The crowd, divided between frustration at the lack of dramatic striking exchanges and awe at the sheer dominance unfolding before their eyes, could only watch as the balance of the middleweight division shifted before them. This wasn't the chaos of brawling fists. This was the quiet violence of control. When the final bell rang, the judges' scorecards could barely capture the gulf between the two men. Some analysts went as far as to say the fight could have been scored with absurd margins, 10-8s, strung across nearly every round. Headlines the next morning labeled it a stomping, a polite term for what was closer to a dismantling. And yet, in the aftermath, Chimaev was humble, almost regretful. He apologized to the fans for not delivering the kind of spectacular finish so many expected. He praised Du Plessis for his resilience, calling him a lion for surviving that kind of punishment. It was as if he wanted to make clear that domination didn't mean disrespect. Du Plessis himself carried his defeat with a strange sense of respect and unfinished business. He admitted, with a fighter's honesty, that Chimaev seemed to know every move before he could make it, as though his game had been solved before it was even played. But he refused to frame the loss as an ending. For him, this was merely another obstacle, another chapter in a career that he still insists will lead him back to gold. His body may have been battered, his face bloodied, but his spirit remained intact, and his words to the press echoed with determination. This wasn't over, and yet, as much as Du Plessis promised to return, all attention shifted to the man who now wore the crown. Khamzat Chimaev didn't waste time fanning rumors of retirement or slowing down the narrative. Instead, he dismissed those whispers with a smile, even joking, "I need money, bro." More importantly, he set his sights on an ambition so audacious that only a handful of fighters in history have dared to voice it. Chimaev wasn't satisfied with being a middleweight champion. He wasn't content with climbing just one mountain. He spoke openly of chasing glory in 3 divisions: welterweight, middleweight, and light heavyweight. It was the kind of goal that seemed impossible on paper, yet watching him that night in Chicago, it didn't feel entirely out of reach. The natural question after such a one-sided coronation was simple: who's next? Among the names floated Paulo Costa, Nasruddin Imavov, and rising talents like Caio Baralho. One stood out above all: Sean Strickland. A former champion himself, Strickland carried both the name recognition and the stylistic intrigue to make the matchup compelling. Oddsmakers listed him as the frontrunner, and fans immediately latched onto the narrative. Strickland wasn't just another contender. He was a past sparring partner of Chimaev's, a man with history, personal animosity, and a reputation for raw, unfiltered conflict. A fight between them wouldn't just be about skill, it would be about pride, about familiarity, about proving who truly ruled the middleweight kingdom. For Du Plessis, the loss opens a different path. Though dethroned, his standing in the division remains strong. His record, his performances, and his fighting style ensure he's still just 1 or 2 big wins away from reclaiming contender status. More intriguingly, whispers of a potential move to light heavyweight gained traction. Walking around at over 210 pounds, Du Plessis has long been seen as a man large for middleweight, and Brendan Schaub and others have openly speculated about his viability in another division. Some even toyed with the dream of him chasing championships across 3 weight classes, mirroring the same ambitions Chimaev himself voiced. It's an idea that stretches the imagination, but it highlights the respect Du Plessis still commands despite his defeat. The build-up to the fight had been marked by analysts circling the same theme. Wrestling would decide everything. Joe Rogan hammered the point relentlessly, warning that Du Plessis' only hope was to create chaos in the grappling exchanges, to bend the rules if necessary, just to buy space to strike. Michael Bisping echoed similar sentiments, insisting that the South African couldn't simply avoid the wrestling. He had to confront it, neutralize it, and force Chimaev into a stand-up war. Darren Till, perhaps more than anyone, carried the loudest confidence in Chimaev. Having trained alongside him, he knew firsthand the suffocating pressure, the endless chain of takedowns, and the despair that settled over sparring partners unable to stay upright. His prediction wasn't hype. It was testimony. And when the cage door locked, every warning, every prediction, every whispered fear played out with chilling accuracy. Du Plessis sprawled, only to be dragged down. He wall-walked, only to be peeled, away from the fence. He tried to create separation, only to find himself flat on his back seconds later. The fight became a living reenactment of Rogan's analysis, a match where the striker was trapped under the wrestler, unable to find daylight long enough to let his fists fly. The blueprint had been drawn in words before the fight, and in Chicago, Chimaev painted it onto the canvas of the octagon with ruthless precision. What made it even more impressive was Chimaev's patience. Many believed that once he secured control, he would unleash a barrage to finish quickly. Instead, he chose restraint. He banked rounds, drained the champion, and showed the kind of composure rarely seen in first-time title challengers. He fought, like a man who understood that greatness isn't about fleeting highlights, but about undeniable, sustained dominance. As the final seconds ticked away, the contrast between the two fighters told the story better than any scorecard. Du Plessis' face was bloodied, his body exhausted, every movement weighted with fatigue. Chimaev, meanwhile, stood largely unscathed, smiling as the belt was wrapped around his waist, the symbol of a kingdom he had just claimed. Not everyone in the arena appreciated the method. Some fans booed the wrestling, longing for wild exchanges and highlight reels, but others recognized what they had just witnessed. A masterclass in control, a dismantling so thorough that even without a finish, it left no doubt about who the superior fighter was. For better or worse, the middleweight division had a new face, and his name was Khamzat Chimaev. The fight served as a stark reminder of the difference between power and control. Du Plessis carries knockout power in his fists, the kind that can turn a fight on a dime. But power means little when a man never allows you to use it. Chimaev dictated every moment, muted the striking exchanges, and forced the fight to unfold, entirely on his terms. That kind of consistency, that kind of ability to impose one's will regardless of circumstance, is what defines champions. And so, the middleweight division enters a new era, an era where Chimaev reigns, not as a striker seeking the knockout blow, but as a wrestler who suffocates hope before it has the chance to breathe. The questions now hang heavy in the air. Can anyone stop him? Can Sean Strickland or Paulo Costa find a way to resist the storm? Could a future move to welterweight or light heavyweight stretch his dominance even further? These are the questions that will define the months ahead, questions that keep fans debating late into the night. Because if one thing was made clear, in Chicago, it's that Khamzat Chimaev isn't finished. He isn't even close. He's only just beginning. So, what did you think of the fight? Did Chimaev's dominance impress you, or were you left wanting more from a night that many expected to end in fireworks? Do you believe Sean Strickland is the rightful next challenger, or should someone else step into the spotlight? And perhaps, The biggest question of all, can Khamzat truly achieve the impossible and capture gold in 3 different divisions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more stories from the heart of the fight game.